Hello everyone, my name is Bakshi Puneet and today we will perform the examination of sensory system and reflexes. Hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
What's your name?
I'm Kinbakshi.
Today we'll perform sensory testing and reflexes.
Okay.
Compare symmetric areas on the two sides of the body, including the arm, legs, and trunk. For pain, temperature, and touch sensation, compare distal to proximal area of the extremities. Scatter the stimuli to sample most of the dermatome and major peripheral nerve. For vibration and position sensation, test the finger and toe first. If these are normal, you may safely assume that more proximal areas are also be normal. Vary the pace of your testing so that the patient does not merely respond to your repetitive rhythms. When you detect an area of sensory loss or hypersensitivity, map out its boundaries in detail. Stimulate first at a point of reduced sensation, then in a progressive steps until the patient reports a change to normal sensation. Before each of the following tests, show the patient what you plan to do and explain how you would like the patient to respond. The patient's eyes should be closed during actual testing. Use a sharp safety pin, the stick portion of a broken cotton swab, or other suitable tool. Occasionally substitute the blunt end for the point. Ask the patient, is this sharp or dull? To prevent transmitting a blood-borne infection, discard the pin or other devices safely. Do not reuse it on other person. Testing skin temperature is often omitted if pain sensation is normal. If there are sensory deficits, use two test tubes or cup with hot or cold water or a tuning fork heated or cooled by running water. Touch the skin and ask the patient to identify hot or cold. With a fine wisp of cotton, touch the skin lightly, avoiding pressure. Ask the patient to respond whenever a touch is felt and to compare one area with another. Avoid testing calloused skin, which is normally relatively insensitive. Use a relatively low pitched tuning fork of 128 Hz. Tap it on the heel of your hand and place it firmly over a distal interphalangeal joint of the patient's finger, then over the interphalangeal joint of the big toe. Ask what the patient feels. If you are not sure whether the patient is feeling pressure or vibration, ask the patient to tell you when the vibration stops. Then touch the tuning fork to stop it from vibrating and confirms this change with the patient. If vibration sense is impaired, proceed more proximal bony prominences, example wrist, elbow, medial malleolus, shin, patella, anterior superior iliac spine, spinous processes, and clavicles. Grasp the patient's big toe, holding it by its sides between your thumb and index finger, then pull it away from the other toe. This prevents extraneous tactile stimuli from affecting the testing. Demonstrate the up and down as you move the patient's toe clearly upward and downward. Then, with the patient's eye closed, ask the patient to say up or down when moving the large toe in a small arc. Repeat the test several times on each side. If position sense is impaired, move proximally to the test to ankle joint. In a similar fashion, test position in the fingers, moving proximally if indicated to the metacarpophalangeal joints, wrist and elbow. Because discriminative sensation depend on touch and position sense, they are useful only when these sensations are either intact or only slightly impaired. The first test we will do for discriminative sensation is stereognosis. Stereognosis refers to the ability to identify an object by feeling it. Place a familiar object such as coin, paperclip, key, pencil or cotton ball in the patient's hand and ask the patient to tell you what it is. Normally, a patient will manipulate it skillfully and identify it correctly within 5 seconds. Asking the patient to distinguish heads from a tail on a coin is a sensitive test of stereognosis. If arthritis or other conditions prevent the patient from manipulating an object well enough to identify it, test the ability to identify the numbers. With a blunt end of a pen or a pencil, draw a large number in the patient's palm. A normally able person can identify most such numbers. Using the two ends of an open paper clip or two pins, touch a finger pad in two places simultaneously. Alternate the double stimulus irregularly with a one-point touch. Be careful not to cause pain. Find the minimal distance at which the patient can discriminate one from the 2 points. Normally, less than 5 mm on the finger pad is a minimal distance. This can be used on the other parts of the body, but normal distances vary widely from one body region to the other. Briefly touch a point on the patient's skin, then ask the patient to open both eyes and point to the place touched. Normally, a person can do so accurately. Lesions of the sensory cortex impair the ability to localize point accurately. Stimulate one side or simultaneously stimulate corresponding areas on both sides of the body. Ask where the patient feel your touch. Normally both stimulus are felt. With lesions of the sensory cortex, only one stimulus may be recognized. The stimulus to the opposite side, the damaged cortex, is extinguished. If the patient's reflexes are symmetrically diminished or absent, use reinforcement, a technique involving isometric contraction of the other muscles for up to 10 seconds that may increase reflex activity. To reinforce the arm reflexes, for example, ask the patient to clench his or her teeth or to squeeze both knees together. If leg reflexes are diminished or absent, ask the patient to lock fingers and pull one hand against the other. Tell the patient to pull just before you strike the patellar or Achilles tendon. The patient's elbow should be partially flexed and the forearm pronated with palm down. Place your thumb or finger firmly on the biceps tendon. Aim the strike with the reflex hammer directly through your digit toward the bicep tendon. Observe flexion at the elbow and watch for and feel the contraction of the biceps muscle. The patient may be sitting or supine. Flex the patient's arm at the elbow with palm toward the body and pull it slightly across the chest. Strike the triceps tendon with a direct blow directly behind and just above the elbow. Watch for the contraction of the triceps muscle and extension at the elbow. The patient's hand should rest on the abdomen or the lap with the forearm partly pronated. Strike the radius with the point or flat edge of the reflex hammer about 1 to 2 inches above the wrist. Watch for the flexion and supination of the forearm. The patient may be either sitting or lying down as long as the knee is flexed. Briskly tap the patellar tendon just below the patella. Note the contraction of the quadriceps with extension at the knee. Placing your hand on the patient's anterior thigh, let you feel this reflex. If the patient is sitting primarily dorsiflex, the foot at the ankle, persuade the patient to relax, strike the Achilles tendon and watch and feel for the plantar flexion at the ankle. Also note the speed of relaxation after muscular contraction. If the reflexes seem hyperactive, test for the ankle clonus. Support the knee in a partly flexed position. With your other hand, dorsiflex and plantar flex the foot a few times while encouraging the patient to relax. Then sharply dorsiflex the foot and maintain it in dorsiflexion. Look and feel for rhythmic oscillation between the dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. Normally, the ankle does not react to this stimulus. There may be a few clonic beats if the patient is tense or has exercised. Test the abdominal reflexes by lightly but briskly stroking each side of the abdomen, above and below the umbilicus. Use a key wooden end of a cotton tipped applicator or a tongue blade twisted and split longitudinally. Note the contraction of the abdominal muscle and movement of the umbilicus towards the stimulus. Abdominal reflexes may be absent in both central and peripheral nerve lesions. With a key or a wooden end of an applicator stick, stroke the lateral aspect of the sole from the heel to the ball of the foot, curving medially across the ball. Use the lightest stimulus needed to provoke a response, but increase firmness if necessary. Closely observe the movement of the big toe, normally plantar flexion. Some patients withdraw from this stimulus by flexing the hip and the knee. Hold the ankle if necessary to complete your observation. At times, it is difficult to distinguish withdrawal from a Babinski response. Dorsiflexion of the big toe is a positive Babinski response arising from a CNS lesion affecting the corticospinal tract. Using a broken applicator stick or pinprick, lightly scratch the anus on both sides. Watch for reflex contraction of the external anal sphincter. Detection of the reflex contraction is facilitated by placing a gloved finger in the anus during testing. Loss of the anal reflex suggests a lesion in the S2, S3, S4 reflex arc seen in cauda equina lesions.